I can't sleep when I lay in bed. Too much thinking in my head. I don't know what to do anymore. But come on now, tell me the score. Is there anything I can do to get out of these tragic blues? I'm a victim of circumstance. I never really had a chance. I lay down and stare at my feet. You know the world has got me beat.
Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're going to be talking about health and nutrition. Today I have two guests on my show, Leslie and Christy. Thank you for being a guest on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we could start by, you guys can kind of just tell me a little bit about yourselves and why you kind of got into this particular field. You can start, Christy.
Okay, thank you. Well, my former career was as a school teacher, and after leaving the Bay Area and moving to the Roseville area, I spent about 10 years raising my children, and then I decided I really wanted to go back to work, and I've always had a passion for health and nutrition.
Yes.
A friend of mine became an NTP, a nutritional therapy practitioner. She told me about it, and I thought, this is what I want to do. So I enrolled in the school.
Nice, nice. What about you, Leslie?
Wonderful. So I am a registered dietitian who specializes in eating disorders, and I got into this field because I had a personal experience myself in high school, and so ever since I recovered myself, I really wanted to dive into nutrition and figure out how I can, provide help to others who are struggling with the same thing. So that's when I went on to get my dietetics training, and I've been in the field ever since.
Okay. I guess I want to kind of elaborate on that too, because I think here in America, that seems to be a huge problem. Overeating, eating at a lot of restaurants that, that's not really beneficial for your health. So could you just kind of explain to us, like, what actually is eating disorder?
Absolutely. So eating disorders are very complex. They are mental health issues, and so a lot of people think that eating disorders are just all about the food, but they're much more than just the food. There's a huge psychological component to it, and it's kind of taking the food piece and taking it to the extremes. So you might see some extremes in eating behavior, whether it's extremes in under-eating, whereas you might see that with something like anorexia nervosa, or extremes in overeating, which you might see with binge eating behaviors. So they're very complex conditions. It's not just something that nutrition is important for, it's also the mental health aspect, speaking with a therapist, getting a collaborative approach to treating the disorder.
I know that I have people that I'm connected to in my life. I'm trying to be careful with my words. And one person in general, he eats a lot. I mean, I've watched this person eat, and he'll go back in like 5 or 10 minutes, he'll eat again. And then you'll find him eating again. And I sit back and I kind of watch that type of behavior. And, I know one like about 3 weeks ago, I kind of was trying to talk to him about food portion. And so he cut down a little bit, as far as food portion. But this behavior continued like 2 or 3 days later. And so, and I'm wondering, like, what is actually causing this person to kind of eat like that? Is he bored? Is he really craving food? So that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about why we eat, we don't just eat because we're hungry. That's the reason that we should be eating for the most part of the reasons. But we also eat for stress reasons, habit, boredom, emotions. A lot of people will eat due to sadness or boredom. I think is a big one. Habits, coming home and your automatic habit is to go to the refrigerator and open it up and start munching. So there's many other reasons for eating that do not involve physical hunger. And something that I think is so important to focus on is not just the what of food, so what foods you're eating, but also paying attention to your body, paying attention to your hunger and your fullness levels, principles of kind of mindful and intuitive eating, and really being able to check in with your body and see, is my body really needing nutrition at this point, or is there something else going on? Am I stressed? Am I emotional? Are there other activities that I can do to help to satisfy those needs other than turning to food?
Wow.
Yeah, and another interesting component to that is that there are foods that literally trigger one of our hormones called leptin. And leptin says to us, I'm full and I'm satiated.
Yeah.
So when we eat foods on the standard American diet, which is a diet full of processed foods, high in sugar,
Yes.
high in refined carbohydrates, we don't trigger that hormone.
Yeah.
We've all watched somebody at, say, a Super Bowl party open a bag of chips and just mindlessly, aimlessly eat that entire bag.
Yes.
Well, nothing in the body is saying I'm full and I'm done,
Yes.
because we're not feeding the body at the cellular level. So when we get the beautiful, healthy, whole foods into the diet, people can stop eating.
Yes, that's interesting. So, what's the difference between nutrition and mental health? Could you tell me the connection? What's the
Sure.
connection between
Sure.
nutrition and mental health?
So there is no fundamental difference between the mind and the body. It's all connected to the same integrated system. The body requires certain raw materials to function properly. When it doesn't get that in the form of food, because food is medicine, it doesn't function. So dysfunction sets in, whether that's in a physical manifestation, like a digestive disorder, or mood disorders like anxiety and depression. And all of that comes back to the body's inability to access those fundamental raw materials that come from good, healthy food.
Yeah. I met someone years ago who was diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome, and I don't know if you guys know a little about that, but this particular person, we had to assist him with getting put on a really strict diet because his body would tell him that he's not full, and he would just eat himself to death if we will allow him to do that. And so I know that that the nutrition aspect of things is connected to our mental health, but a lot of people, they don't realize that. They just think that they're just eating just to be eating, or they think they're eating to just survive.
Right.
But to me, it goes much more deeper than that. So wow. What type of eating disorders are there?
So there are several different type of eating disorders. The biggest kind of classifications are anorexia nervosa. So that's kind of the one that we commonly think about when we think about self-starvation, emaciated appearance. Individuals with anorexia have a very distorted perception of their body. They can be, extraordinarily underweight and still see themselves as overweight. So a lot of restricting behaviors. Oftentimes it goes along with excessive exercise as well. Sometimes some additional compensatory behaviors like purging after meals and things along those lines. So a lot of obsession around the food piece. And then you also see bulimia nervosa. And with bulimia, oftentimes they're at a normal body weight. They're at a kind of a healthy body weight, so it's they're harder to detect. But what happens with bulimia is it's around kind of trying to control body weight, but the individual will go through phases where they will binge eat. So binge eat is basically anything where you are eating a kind of a very large amount of food, usually within about a 2-hour time frame, usually finishing very, very overfull. A feeling of being out of control, kind of a loss of control of your ability to stop eating during the episode. So with bulimia, you will undergo kind of binge eating behaviors, and afterwards try to make up for the calories through some sort of compensatory behavior. So this could be something like self-induced vomiting. It could also be something like over-exercise. Laxative abuse is another one that can be abused. Diuretics or fasting. So very, very harmful to the body. Both anorexia and bulimia. Many different health effects. And the other one that is really well known is binge eating disorder. So this is actually the newest one that we're learning more and more about. And this is similar to bulimia in that you have these episodes of the binge eating, and that is a real feeling of loss of control. And it's not something as simple as just food tastes good and continuing to eat on food that tastes good. It's really a feeling of losing kind of control. Oftentimes I hear clients talk about a feeling of kind of numbness. They kind of go into a phase, a zone where it distracts and kind of takes away from all the stressors or emotions that they're feeling at that point in time when they go into this food mode. With binge eating disorder, they do not have the compensatory behaviors of the purging afterwards. However, there is still a lot of guilt and a shame and health conditions associated with that as well.
Wow, that's and this is one reason I'm glad that both of you decided to come on the show, because I really feel like this information is very important, and also I think that the community need to hear about this, because once again, when people eat, people think that they're just eating, but there can be a deeper something deep going on, like a problem, in other words, going on that people don't even realize. I know a lot of people tend to take a lot of vitamins, and they don't realize that sometimes vitamins can also be connected with mental health as well. So, and I'm trying to find out if one of you, if you can tell me, how does a vitamin B12 deficiency impact your mental health? Because I know some of those vitamins does impact you mentally.
Right. Well, vitamin B12 is a very prevalent nutritional deficiency in the United States right now. And actually, if you're deficient in B12, it may lead to depression.
Wow.
So there's several reasons why we have B12 deficiencies, one of which is digestion related. B12 is a very large molecule, and it's not easy to digest. It actually needs basically what we would call a taxi cab to take it down to the small intestine, which is where we digest our nutrients. That requires a protein called intrinsic factor. Without adequate hydrochloric acid in the stomach, we don't have adequate intrinsic factor. So we have a country that is constantly going to the doctor saying, "Doctor, I have heartburn." The doctor then gives medication to reduce hydrochloric acid. Then there is a whole cascade of dysfunction that occurs. One of those can be vitamin B12 not getting down to the small intestine to be properly absorbed. In addition, if somebody has Crohn's disease, celiac disease, IBS, all these things interfere with the digestion of B12. So that's one side of the spectrum. The other is we've got a lot of people that are vegans and vegetarians now. We only find B12 in the animal kingdom, not the plant kingdom. If you are a vegan, you need to be extremely careful with your B12 and supplement for it. So if people don't realize these two things, they don't realize how profoundly a vitamin B12 can actually affect mood disorders, anger, anxiety, depression.
That's interesting, because I go on I feel like my eating kind of go up and down. Some weeks I would just, eat a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables. Other weeks I will eat like veggie burgers and things like that. I've kind of shied away from eating like a lot of meat. So, what you're just saying just kind of spoke volumes to me.
Because it's very common now.
Yeah, it is very common. And a lot of people, they don't know. They're thinking that they're doing the right thing. But in actuality, we could actually be cheating our bodies in a sense.
Exactly.
Wow.
So there's 3 macronutrients. We have carbohydrates, we have protein, and we have fat. Our macronutrients are what give us our micronutrients. Our micronutrients are what keep us healthy in the body and in the mind, because once again, it's all one integrated system working together for optimal health. And the body is constantly seeking homeostasis and health.
So what tools do you have to access nutritional deficiencies?
So I run a lab called SpectraCell, and this is the most fantastic lab I have found since I've been a nutritional therapy practitioner. And what this does is it's a lab that does blood work. And it basically is a snapshot of the cells that is cultured over a 3-week period. And it assesses your vitamins, your minerals, your amino acids, your antioxidants, your glucose metabolism. And basically from this, I'm able to then take some other charts that show that anxiety and depression have relationships to nutritional deficiencies. This is something that people in the mental health world don't turn to and don't think about very often, that therapy is awesome and it's really, really important, but we also always need to look at what is going on inside of the body. And if our brain isn't functioning properly, then something in the body isn't functioning properly. In other words, we're not feeding it those raw materials that we need. So in nutritional therapy, we unpeel the layers of the onion to figure out what the dysfunction is in the body from a nutritional, cellular level. So this is a starting place for me.
So let me throw this out there. So what do you guys think about people who are not motivated to eat healthy? you know, I mean, could there be something else going on, or could it just
Definitely.
be that they don't have a desire to eat healthy? What do you think about
A
that?
lot of it stems from misinformation.
Yeah.
So one of the taglines on my website is how you eat, think, move, and supplement have a profound effect on your health.
Okay.
So I need to talk to somebody about their stress level. Stress makes us sick. Stress makes us fat. It puts us into
Yes.
sympathetic state, fight or flight.
Yes.
When we don't eat in parasympathetic state, in other words, rest and digest, we do not digest our nutrients properly. So I take the whole person. It's not just about what's on your plate. So if people can talk to me and share with me what's going on in their life, then I give them tools and strategies and recommendations about how to make food and your relationship with food a really beautiful thing again.
Yes.
And one of the things that I was thinking of earlier when we were talking is we were not, as human beings, taught how to eat food. We were taught table manners.
Yeah.
We were taught take your hands off the table. We weren't taught to chew our food,
Yes.
put our fork down between eating, talk pleasantly among our family members, and to enjoy eating.
Yes.
Food has turned into something that's such a struggle for people now, and I'm sure you see that all the time in your practice.
Absolutely. Mindful eating is so important. You
Oh,
know,
it's
bringing
so
attention
important.
and actually tasting your food. You know, I think that it's that hand to mouth kind of action that happens, and we're not even aware that it happens, and people can consume, you know, hundreds and hundreds of extra calories on a day-to-day basis and not even be aware of it because they're not taking time to be present and actually enjoy the food.
Right.
Yeah. I know growing up in an African American culture, we tend to eat, and especially in my family, I'm gonna speak about the way I grew up. The food that we were, you know, that was made for us were very unhealthy. You know, macaroni and cheese, or just food, fried chicken, and things that had just like a lot of grease and butter and lard. My mom cooked with lard, you know, and but she didn't know no better because that's what her mom taught her and her mom taught her. And so when I started to stray away from that type of food, people start looking at me like something's wrong with me. You know, you want to eat an apple, you want to eat a banana, you don't drink soda anymore, and things like that. But I think a lot of too that is learned behavior.
It is learned behavior.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on the standard American diet too.
Yeah.
Which is once again that diet of mac and cheese,
Yeah.
processed foods.
Yes.
And we ate some whole foods too, for sure.
Yeah.
But the convenience foods. But I'm probably going to say something that's going to shock you now. But
Okay.
it's what you just talked about, that your mom cooked with butter and lard.
Uh-huh.
Butter and lard are beautiful, healthy fats.
Ah, are
And
you
I'm
serious?
not kidding. I'm not kidding. They not only taste good, but they feed the body the fatty acids that the body needs to be healthy. So when I work with people,
Wow.
fat is my favorite macronutrient to tackle because fat is the one that triggers that hormone of satiation. So when we removed fat from the diet, all in the name of good heart health, back in the 80s, we became sicker and
Wow.
fatter, and more chronic disease
Wow.
became a part of how we, you know, are now than ever before in the history of mankind. So eating fat is actually something that I teach people to do.
Okay, so now you just you know kind of jumped in my backyard a little
Right,
bit because
right.
I kind of strayed away from
Because
that.
that's what we've been taught.
Yeah.
See, it's no surprise. I was low fat, non-fat. I thought that was the way to stay thin, way to stay healthy. When I learned that I could start eating fat again, I was like, hallelujah, because
Yeah.
guess what? Fat tastes good.
Yeah, it does. Tastes
yeah,
very good.
When we remove fat from the food, what the food companies have done is replace that with high fructose corn syrup and sugar.
Wow.
Because there's nothing else to make the fat or the food taste good without the fat in it.
Right.
And that elicits an insulin response in the body. And that is what makes us sick.
Yeah.
It really creates metabolic chaos in the body. So
Interesting.
getting onto nutrient-dense whole foods and proper carbohydrates, proper fats, and proper proteins is the way to get the micronutrients into the body.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that can be a form of an eating disorder in a sense. So I'm learning.
Right. I've never had anybody say to me, "Oh my gosh, you're telling me I can eat butter?"
Yeah,
and that's a
exactly.
terrible thing. They'll say, "You're kidding." And I say, well, in addition to the fact that you can eat it, it's only a pat that you're adding.
Yeah.
You don't overeat butter. Have you ever
No.
seen anyone take a cube of butter
No.
and eat it?
No, not
it
at all.
doesn't happen. But if you prepare some vegetables properly, and at the end of preparing them, put a little pat of butter on for taste.
Wow.
You might be amazed that your children will actually eat their vegetables.
Yeah.
You know, because it tastes good.
This is interesting because
Right.
I'm serious. I shy away from all of that.
Right.
So
and
this,
you shouldn't, because
Yeah.
it won't make you fat.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I teach all the time. Wrap your arms around this fact. Fat doesn't make you fat.
yes.
Processed foods, refined sugar, and carbohydrates make you fat,
Okay.
not fat.
Nice. So let me ask you a question, Leslie. Do eating disorder ever accompany other types of mental health disorders?
They oftentimes do. It's very common that the individual is also suffering from depression, anxiety disorders are very common. Substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs, is also very commonly associated with eating disorders. It could also accompany post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and other symptoms as well. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is another one that oftentimes accompanies eating disorders as well. So there's many other factors that go involved with the disordered behavior.
So do you think that, and this is a question to either one of you all, do you think that unhealthy eating can contribute to any sickness or any type of detrimental diagnosis that a person could potentially get from a doctor? In other words, I'm asking you, if a person continues to eat on a very unhealthy track, is it a chance that they can, get sick, or, because from my understanding, I know someone who was diagnosed with brain cancer. And the person is very close to me, and they really don't eat healthy.
Right.
And the doctor has instructed this person to kind of lay off the sugar. They've given this person, a roadmap to continue to eat healthy,
Right.
and they won't do it. And so my question is, do you think that will contribute to something deadly or feed any type of sickness that, it's the doctors are saying you need to eat healthy and move away from that?
Well, in my opinion, it is what causes disease.
Yeah.
Because it just creates utter metabolic chaos in the body to not feed the body and nourish the body at the cellular level.
Yeah.
So typically, you don't see people get type 2 diabetes who are sleeping adequately,
Yes.
eating whole foods, exercising regularly, and keeping their stress low.
Yes.
You see it in people that are on the standard American diet, and their body is just constantly craving more and more and more of those carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is that a slice of bread can do the same thing to you that a Snicker bar can do, because
Yes.
it's all sugar in the body. So we need to focus on the really good, healthy carbohydrates, the leafy green vegetables, the low glycemic carbs, and some fruit. I'm even very cautious with fruit when I'm working with clients, because
Oh, wow.
because fruit can be very high in sugar.
Yes.
So we can get all the nutrition we need from carbohydrates in the form of our vegetables. We don't need to turn to the whole grains and to the starchy carbs that
Wow.
create the problems in the body.
Wow.
So I'm really a big believer in let food be thy medicine, let medicine be thy food.
Yes, I like that. I like that. So can eating disorder affect our quality of life in any way?
Absolutely. With eating disorders, it goes to such extremes that the individual, their constant, thought process is revolving around food. It's revolving around eating. It might be pre-planning out the next meal, or thinking about, if I have this many calories, then how am I going to compensate later on? What am I going to do to cut back, here or there? Where am I going to have the next, binge episode? Where am I going to purge? So the individual might be, thinking about these things all the time.
Yeah.
So it really detracts from the ability to focus on, other activities of daily life, whether it be, social relationships, work, school, activities that someone may have really, really enjoyed in the past. Suddenly they're not necessarily really doing them. They're focusing so much on the food, and it can just become completely overwhelming. So something that's super important with eating disorders is to get that balance, back with food, trying to remove the focus so much from the food piece, actually, and getting them to incorporate more of a variety in their diets, and to try and let go of some of the intense behaviors and thoughts and feelings around that.
Yeah. I watch a show on a cable network, and I can't think of the name of it, but it interviewed different people who's like 600 pounds, 500 pounds, and I sit back and I watch this show, and food is their life.
Right.
And
Life.
and a doctor that works with them, the doctor tried to instruct them to lose a little weight in order for him to do the, I think it's Guy Patrick's.
I've watched this.
Yeah.
It's called My 600-Pound Life.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
And wow, I sit there, I'm like, wow, this is amazing to me that, you know, this person is so in love with food to the point that it's killing them. You know, and even when you hear a medical doctor tell you need to take these steps, if not, you could potentially die. And the person does not have the will or the strength to cut back.
Right.
And all I can think about is, okay, what got them to that point? What happened in their lives where they developed this friendship with food to the point that it would actually potentially kill them? You know.
The standard American diet is made with additives and preservatives and things into the food that are highly addictive. These people are no longer in a place where it's just willpower.
Yes.
Because we will always lose to willpower. So when I watch that show, I sometimes get a little frustrated because I've never yet heard the doctor talk to them about how and what to eat. He simply says to them, go lose weight.
That's exactly
obviously
right.
to be in this position, they have been on every diet under the sun, every yo-yo diet. 95% of diets fail because we as human beings simply cannot beat that hormone again called leptin. When leptin senses that we're calorie restricting, it basically down-regulates the metabolism. So when we eat the standard American diet, we're putting tons of calories into the body with no nutrients into the body. Without those nutrients, we don't trigger anything that says, I can stop eating.
Wow.
So we need to teach these people to go to the grocery store and buy foods with one word in them. Buy broccoli, buy eggs, buy fish.
Yes.
You know, one word instead of going down the aisle that has, you know, a box in it that's going to have 20 words in the ingredient label, additives, preservatives, and things that simply aren't healthy for the body. Half the time the body literally doesn't even know how to digest this food.
Wow.
And it is creating so many of the digestive problems that we currently have in this country.
And I definitely believe that I know for myself, I pretty much threw away all the canned goods. I mean, because it's just, you know, I needed to make that choice for myself.
Exactly.
You know, and I think we have a tendency as American people, we want everything quick.
Exactly.
So we go to the fast food restaurants, we go to get the microwave food. We want it, instead of realize that, okay, this can potentially harm us if we continue to feed our body with this stuff. We don't, I'm talking about as a whole, as a society, a lot of us don't really read the nutrition label that's on the back.
People read the box that says the calories and the breakdown, and the first thing I teach them to do is go to the ingredient label. And typically if there's more than 5 words on there, and if you do not recognize every one of those as food, in other words, if you can't pronounce it because there's 5 syllables, that is not food.
Wow.
If great grandma didn't recognize that word as food, don't walk from that food, run from it.
Wow.
And if it says heart healthy on it, run even farther.
Wow, wow. How does, you know, and maybe you can answer this as, how does a person develop an eating disorder?
There's many different factors that go involved with them, how someone develops an eating disorders, and research is still ongoing. It's multifactorial. You know, I think it's a big myth out there that eating disorders just develop due to a desire to be thin or to look a certain way. There's genetic aspects around it. If you have a family history of eating disorders, you're much more likely to experience an eating disorder. There's a biological aspect of it. There are studies about the brain of people struggling with eating disorders, and their response to eating or not eating is different than the normal population, and so the feelings that someone with anorexia might get from restricting behaviors might actually create a sense of calm and well-being in them, and the feelings of the binge behaviors might also create a sense of calm, well-being, feeling better for someone with bulimia or binge eating disorder. So there's definitely the biological aspects, and thinking about our environmental aspects, our social aspects, cultural ideals, cultural kind of expectations to look a certain way. The media image is just rampant. I mean, the studies shown, you know, young girls as old as 6 years old, start thinking about their body weights, wanting to lose weight, feeling uncomfortable, and comparing themselves to images in magazines, and thinking that that's the way that everybody is supposed to be. And it is so important to really show people that we're different shapes, we're different sizes, we're
Yeah,
all different
right.
people, and
Yeah.
Magazines, the media, oftentimes it's photoshopped. It's not even real.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's it's an art project.
That is so true. So, so you kind of shared that you got into the field because you had your own struggle. Are you comfortable with just kind of sharing it a little bit? Because maybe it can help somebody. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my experience with eating disorder, it was a pretty kind of short bout. Some people, I was lucky, I was one of the lucky ones. Some people struggle with it for many years. But it was, I personally struggled with anorexia, so it was a feeling around that kind of, the obsessive kind of thoughts around food, calorie counting, kind of focusing on, not really seeing myself as I really was at that point in time. And it took a lot of support from family members, friends, also reaching out to treatment centers to get a therapist on board, to be working with a dietitian to really kind of look at the underlying, factors of the eating disorder. So that's really, really important. For me, it was really being able to, address the underlying factors, and also to be able to get back on that normal eating schedule, to get my body kind of back onto that regular kind of dose of nutrition throughout the day. As somebody struggling with anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorder, their hunger and fullness cues are often way out of whack. With anorexia, they don't even recognize that they're feeling hungry when their bodies are truly starving, or if they are getting some hunger cues, they've learned how to ignore them for so long that they don't even really recognize that they are there. So learning that nutrition is wonderful. It's the reason that we are alive. We wouldn't be here for eating. And also being able to eat many different foods comfortably. I absolutely believe that we should be eating the majority of our foods as whole foods, less processed foods, things that are going to really nourish the body. When I work with eating disorders, I also work in incorporating in a variety of different foods. So maybe exposure to things that might be the less healthy foods, like a processed cookie or things like that, to show them that it's eating it at this one time, it's not going to kill you. Right? It's that moderation, it's that balance. It's that variety over time, and really helping people realize that, if you're at a birthday party, you can have birthday cake and you can enjoy it without any guilt, and it's just a wonderful way to incorporate everything and really get that pleasure from eating.
That's a really good point too, because I think also people tend to feel really guilty and they're really hard on themselves if they kind of venture off and have a cookie or a birthday cake or soda.
Yes.
In their minds, a lot of them think that everything that they did for the last 2 months have been undone.
And it doesn't. That's
Exactly.
very true.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one big thing with intuitive eating, and it's a fantastic book if the listeners want to look at that book, Intuitive Eating. It talks about how the Last Supper phenomenon, whereas when people go on diets, and just like you mentioned, diets do not work 95% of the time. The weight is regained within the first 5 years or so, and it's kind of this cycle where the weight's often regained more and more as the body's thrown into this confusion cycle. But basically, when we say to ourselves that a food is off limits, I always like to think about it as if you take a kid and you put a kid in a room full of toys and you take away one toy, which one is a kid going to want? It's going to want the one that you take away.
That's exactly
and so
right.
when we do this to ourselves, it can create this kind of obsession about that food, and it can create ourselves to end up binging on this food, thinking that we can never ever have it again in our diets. So it's finding that balance and giving ourselves the permission that when we really truly want this food, and when it sounds good, it's okay to sit down and enjoy it mindfully, but not completely saying I'm never ever going to touch this food again.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, one of the things when I meet with families and do what I just call a pantry clean out family consultation, I talk to them about replacing the food that they love with a nutrient dense whole food. So if we have a family that loves ice cream, I pull out the ice cream and I read the nutrition label with them and I say, well, look at all of these things in here we don't want. Well, let me teach you to make homemade ice cream. I can teach you to make vanilla ice cream that is drop dead delicious, that has 5 ingredients in it. And so then I'm taking what the family loves and teaching them how to make it in a healthy way. Reese's peanut butter cup is another example. I can make nut butter cups from coconut oil and all of these other products that are really healthy. So we're not removing maybe the favorite candy bar, we're replacing it with the healthy version. Let's maybe take away the chips and put in some nuts. That's not exactly the same food, but it's the same effect in really, So it's not about removing everything, because that doesn't work. But as people start transitioning into the whole foods, you tend, and I can speak from experience with this, you want the less healthful foods less often. because
Okay.
the cravings for it go away, and it doesn't fuel your body, and you don't feel good.
Yes.
So you find that you have more sustainable energy throughout the day, not only to perform maybe athletically if you're an athlete or you go to the gym, but cognitively. And that comes back to the whole anxiety, mental health type of things.
Yeah.
No different in the body than in the brain. We
Yeah.
have to give it those raw materials to thrive.
Yes.
And we're not on this earth to just survive.
Yes.
70% of Americans die of chronic disease, which is described as persistent and long lasting. So leading up to that death was not an enjoyment of life.
Wow.
People aren't thriving. So let's turn that around. And the body has this amazing ability to heal itself. So when you get people off the standard American diet and onto nutrient dense whole foods, I typically meet with clients and I give them about 2 weeks to implement protocols. When I speak to them 2 weeks later, oh my gosh, I feel so good.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm sleeping now.
Oh,
my
yeah.
fuzzy brain is gone. I don't have to go to Starbucks at 3 o'clock to stay awake any longer.
Yes.
So food is doing what it's supposed to do in the body.
Wow, interesting. Do people that have, and I know eating disorder is considered a mental health issue, but do people ever contact either one of you guys that have mental health issues at all?
Yeah, I've definitely been contacted for that. I've worked with quite a few women who have suffered from postpartum depression.
Okay.
I actually used to be in the childbirth industry field, so I had some contacts there. And I actually, this was really nice to hear, but I got a text about 3 days ago from someone I have not worked with in 3 years. She was a
Wow.
postpartum client, and she texted me and she said, Christy, I just want you to know I feel so good. The baby is 3 years old now. I've decided when he goes to school, to kindergarten, I'm going to go become a nutritional therapist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because
That's
she just ran with everything that I suggested, and not everybody does that.
Yeah.
But she was so excited to feel good again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I know it's a really good feeling when you put your practice into play when it comes to people and people actually take your advice and you know everything that you've given them and apply it to their life.
Right.
You know, so I think that's awesome. Leslie, I know that you're also a certified personal trainer. So how does that, how does exercising help our mental state of mind at being at ease? In other words, how does exercising coupled with diet help a person to stay balanced, so to speak?
Right. I think exercise is one of the most wonderful things that the human body can do. I mean, we are meant to move.
Yeah.
Exercise can create all these wonderful chemicals in our body that help to create a feeling of feeling good.
Yeah.
It can be a wonderful way to relieve stress. It can be just a great way to take that you time. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that a lot of us struggle with, is really finding that time to take time for yourself and find activities that you enjoy. And exercise can be so wonderful, when it comes to doing that. Exercise, of course, we all know exercise is really important for your health. The research behind, the benefits of exercise, and it's improving, everything from your cholesterol levels to your blood pressure levels. There's no lack of it out there. So super, super important. And what I think is really important when it comes to exercise is finding something that you enjoy doing.
Totally.
So
Yes,
it's
yes.
it doesn't have to be hopping on a treadmill and running for an hour. It can be dance. It can be yoga. It can be taking a walk someplace that is really beautiful outside. It can be whatever it is that the person truly, truly enjoys. And I think that's so important, is to not just think of exercise as, oh my gosh, I have to go out and exercise, but it's joyful movement. It's kind of finding that joy in moving your body and really using it as a mindful kind of exercise skill as well, and being able to listen to your body and what your body's kind of wanting to do for exercise.
Yeah, and I know what you're saying is to be true. I'm a huge advocate, for exercise. I actually work out Monday through Friday, and I'm at the gym at 3:30 every morning.
Holy cow.
Right, and that's the response I give when I tell people. But I have to, because that keeps me sane. That when I don't, if I miss a day or two in the gym, literally it's like I'm off balance.
Exactly.
But when I get in there, I'm so motivated, I'm energized throughout the day, I can perform my job well. But when I don't go to the gym, I find myself a little bit more sluggish.
Isn't that true?
It's
Crazy. You would think the opposite would happen, but it doesn't. It gives you the energy.
Yeah, and so
Right.
when I tell people I go to the gym at that time in the morning, they why? And you don't have to exercise that much, and you're thin and all this.
Right,
No,
right.
but it's for me mentally.
It's the mental.
Yeah, it keeps me, on
Well,
track.
and like Leslie said, exercise should not just be something to check off the list for the
Yes.
day. It needs to be, you need to find your passion.
Yeah.
And I always suggest you take it to the great outdoors when you can. The gym is great, but
Yeah.
it's still an artificial environment.
Yes.
And I'm not saying the gym's not good.
Yeah.
But if you can take your athletics to nature,
Yeah.
it's so cathartic on the mind.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I have a friend. He's Russian, and he only works outside.
Right.
He does all his pull-ups. He runs. Everything that he does it outside.
Right.
So, and also I think that exercise, it needs to be an experience that you enjoy.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be a hardship. Like, oh, I don't want to get up. I don't want to do this.
Right.
Because most likely you're going to fall back and not do it if
Exactly.
you don't move.
It'll be like the diet.
Yes.
You're going to eventually fall off it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it has to be something you enjoy and love.
Yeah, and something I'll tack on to that is, I work with a population that suffers from such extremes. So usually when I'm kind of approaching the subject of exercise, it's helping to find that balance again, because when you see with eating disorders, oftentimes what we'll see is kind of the opposite of not exercising. It's the diving into way over exercising to where it's never taking a recovery day, working out whether they're sick or injured, several hours per day, very intense, vigorous activities, without nutrition. So it's also finding balance there too,
Yeah.
and finding out what
It
is,
absolutely is.
exercise can be nourishing to the body, but it can also be harmful if it's not
That's-
done appropriately.
Oh, and I hope she don't watch this show. But it's a girl in the gym. Since I met, I know her. And and I could tell that she was a little sick when I was talking to her, and she, said, oh, I got a cold, and so of course I'm like, oh, and she said, no, I shouldn't be here. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be here. Not only you want to give your body time to heal, but you could potentially cause other people to get sick
Right.
too. And she's like, yeah, I know. So I used to be like that though.
Right.
When I get a cold or if I'm not feeling well, I'm like, I gotta go to the gym. But I realized, okay, you need to give your body
You do.
time to heal.
You do.
Right. And plus, I didn't want to pass a cold
Exactly.
on to anybody else. So, I want to get into talking about medication because I think that kind of plays a part in what we're talking about. Do you think that? Let me ask this: what percentage do you think of Americans are on a form of antidepressants?
It's somewhere around 20% of the adult population
Okay.
is on an SSRI or antidepressant. And an interesting statistic is back in 1985, about $240 million were spent a year on antidepressants.
Wow.
Nowadays, it's 12 billion with a B dollars
Wow.
per year.
Wow.
You have to wonder if our direct-to-consumer advertising that we see on TV with all of the drug commercials that drive most of us crazy is the reason for that.
Wow.
Because we're literally one of two countries, us and Australia, that allow that kind of advertising on TV.
Wow.
And I really have had a lot of clients say to me, I watch those TV commercials and I get stressed out and I think, do I have this?
Yeah.
And then you listen to the whole host of side effects that these medications cause.
Wow.
All medication causes nutritional deficiencies on some level if you take it too long.
Yeah.
For acute situations, medication can be a great thing.
Yeah.
But it should not be something that in and of itself is a treatment or a cure, because it's not.
Wow.
Functional medicine unpeels the layers of the onion and figures out, well, why did we have dysfunction in the first place?
Yeah.
So in my practice, I work from what we call the foundations of good health. Nutrient-dense whole food diet, digestion, blood sugar handling, fatty acids, minerals, and hydration. From those foundations, we start moving somebody towards optimal health. Now, it's always out of my scope to take somebody off a medication. I don't touch that. What I'm able to do is educate people as to what their medication is doing to them
Wow.
from a nutritional standpoint. So I have worked with clients that are suffering from chronic disease and they're on medications, and they'll say to me, I really want to get off my medication. And I'll say, great, I'm going to have you contact your doctor and talk to him and her about that. And we're going to start working on those foundations that I just mentioned,
Yeah.
start getting you healthy, and hopefully get to the point where you can get off meds.
Wow.
Almost all my clients, I will say 9 out of 10 that are suffering from chronic disease are on an antidepressant.
Wow.
Now, if you think about it, it makes sense, because if you're suffering all day long in the body, your mind is suffering too.
That's exactly right.
So the doctors then put them on the meds, and unfortunately the system just keeps them on the meds. And the pharmaceutical companies love that.
Oh, absolutely.
They love it.
Oh, yeah. That's how they make a living.
Right. So there's not a lot of money in supplements, but supplements can really build up the body quicker. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done exclusively with food, because it can.
Yeah.
But supplements often help us heal quicker. And sometimes people need that so that they don't falter and they don't fall and they don't go back to relying either on medication or their old habits.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about depression. Do you guys think that depression is a serious health issue, or because I know, like for example, I know someone that he tend to be like, okay, I got a down feeling, I'm feeling down, but based off his actions, it's more than what he's putting it off to be.
Right.
You know, I know this past weekend, you know, he was just crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And finally, I told him, like, man, why are you crying like this? You know, what's going on?
That's more than the blues.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But part of the reason too is that he was taking a lot of pain medication due to him being diagnosed with the brain cancer from the chemo and the radiation.
Right.
And so he had been taking this stuff like a year. And so he went to his primary care physician and told him, look, I want to get off this. Let's plan for you to get off of it. Well, he got off of it. And so he was unable to walk. I mean, just so much going on with him. And so I'm like, wow, you know, and so that's why I got in. I'm like, okay, why are you crying? And so he said, man, you know, some of the side effects of getting off the medication is a down feeling, which I know because I work in the field, that it's depression, you know. And so I really had to really work with him as much as I could to try to allow him to realize what's really going on and try to really do something about this particular situation, you know.
Well, depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide.
Wow.
So, I mean, that just speaks volumes into how enormous this problem is.
Yeah.
And it's never thought of as a connection to nutrition, but look at these charts.
Exactly.
Look at this circle with all of these potential nutritional deficiencies.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they cause the depression, but they're going to contribute to it.
Yes.
So if we have dysfunction in the body, and brain cancer is dysfunction and or disease, the depression is going to go hand in hand with that.
Wow.
So let's get to the root cause, because one disease leads to another.
Yes.
Chronic disease doesn't typically end with just one chronic disease. It's this cascade of dysfunction.
Yeah.
So working on the systems of the body instead of treating a symptom is so huge and so imperative and so needed in this country right now.
Wow, I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
What about, do any of your clients, you know, come to you in a form of a depressed state, or, you know, based off their eating disorder? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so common for the two to go together, and oftentimes the eating disorder develops as a potential kind of a coping mechanism to cope with some of the feelings of depression. You know, our eating behaviors is something that it's right there. We have to do it on a daily basis, so it's something that's easy for us to turn to kind of manipulate if we're trying to distract from some of the really difficult feelings that we might be feeling with depression. Wow. You know, one thing, you know, I've seen, you know, working with this population is getting people on more of a regular kind of eating schedule, letting their body kind of, you know, heal and go through that process of getting in enough nutrients again, can definitely help with, you know, increasing the feelings of well-being. You know, and also the importance of incorporating the therapy side of things as well. You know, I work, you know, alongside a therapist as closely as I can, as much as I can. If I get a client from the outside who doesn't, you know, have a therapist already, I recommend, you know, getting a therapist so we can kind of work as a united team. Because depression, it's such a kind of a big area, and I think there's many different factors that go involved with developing depression, but kind of having that team effort to approach it is really important.
Wow. So is there such thing as health consequences
of eating disorders?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Sure. You know, they actually have the highest, anorexia nervosa has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness, so it's a very, very serious mental illness. If the body isn't getting in enough nutrients, so say with anorexia nervosa, you are pretty much starving every single system in your body. So it's not just the muscle wasting, but your heart muscle. your heart muscle will start to lose muscle. You'll start to lose brain tissue. And there's research that said that sometimes that brain tissue doesn't always come all the way back. Dry skin, hair, nails, brittle nails. You might even start to kind of developing like a layer of kind of fine hair over your body called a lanugo, and it's kind of an attempt of your body trying to keep itself warm. Wow. So those are just some of the many symptoms. It totally messes with your digestive systems. That's kind of regardless of whether it's anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorder, especially if you're using laxatives, abusing that.
Wow.
Your digestive system is very, very much compromised. Electrolyte imbalances, many which can lead to a potential, heart failure, heart attack. So many, many, many different, health effects, health symptoms of eating disorders. So very, very important reason to seek treatment as soon as possible.
Wow. So tell me, what type of food would you guys recommend or suggest that people eat if they want to start on a healthy eating path? I'm just curious to what you guys both.
Well, once again, it gets back to those macronutrients, which bring in the micronutrients. So the number one nutritional deficiency in the United States is water.
Yes.
So on my
Exactly.
intake forms, one of the
Yes.
first questions I ask is, how much water are you drinking?
Wow.
I have clients that start their day with coffee,
Yes.
move to their soda, move to their 5-hour energy, then their Starbucks hit, then they go to alcohol in the afternoon to relax.
Yeah.
They're literally starving themselves of water.
Wow.
So the basic rule is half your body weight in ounces per day in water is what
Yeah.
you should be drinking, and more for diuretics.
Wow.
Then we need a balance of the carbs, the good carbs,
Yes.
the good fats,
Okay.
and adequate protein.
Wow.
And we want to mix it up.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who does eat animal products, a couple of eggs are great. Have some fish one day, eat some red meat one day. I'm fine with red meat. I'm fine with properly sustained and raised animal products that are eating the foods that they should be eating,
Right.
so that their nutrition is sound that they pass on to us.
Wow.
I'm not okay with eating the commercial meats
Yeah.
and the commercially raised animal products.
Yes.
So I'm really all about sourcing my food.
Yes.
But in addition to that, I have certain sort of superfoods that I like people to bring into the diet. Sauerkraut is one,
Okay.
because that inoculates the gut with all the good gut bacteria.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information out there right now about gut health and making, creating a healthy gut. Sauerkraut is one of the foods that can do that. So I try to get all my clients eating sauerkraut or a fermented vegetable of some sort that they do enjoy.
Wow.
Bone broth is another really soothing, gut healing food that I ask people to bring into the diet.
Oh, wow.
So they make that
broth.
bone broth.
Wow.
Yes. I actually have an e-learning course on my website called Bone Broth Fast.
Oh, wow.
Now that doesn't mean I'm encouraging people to fast.
Yeah.
It means that depending on a person, they might fast once in a while on bone broth, if they want to lose weight or something
Yeah.
like that. What it's doing is teaching them how to bring bone broth into the diet, how to make it,
Yeah.
why it's good for you, and what
Yeah.
kind of beautiful foods you can make from it, like your soups and your stews.
Okay. Nice. That's good information. Leslie, give me your opinion. What do you eat? What do you suggest?
Yeah. So my biggest recommendations for anybody is, first off, ditch the diets. Diets do not work. We should not be completely avoiding complete food groups and things like that. Diets get so deprivation based, and when it comes to having a healthy kind of balanced eating plan long term, it has to be something that you enjoy, something that is satisfying, something that still allows you to dine out with others and to still live your life, because that's a huge aspect of eating, is the pleasure from it as well. Just like you were mentioning, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, making sure we're getting all of them in our diets. I like kind of the 3 meals with 2 to 3 snacks per day. I'm trying to prevent swings of excess hunger or excess fullness. Because that's oftentimes when people they skip breakfast and then they have maybe a little snack for lunch. They get home for dinner time and oh my gosh,
They make up for
they're
it.
starving, and it makes sense. I mean, the body's in that famine response, and the body is going to do everything possible to try to get in as much nutrition as possible, because everything the body does is basically to try to take care of you, to try to keep you safe. And if it experiences that famine, it's going to want to get that food in as fast as possible.
Wow.
So really trying to get your eating on that regular schedule as much as possible, knowing that there's, of course, there's going to be some times where things get a little, off schedule, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But trying to listen to our hunger and our fullness cues, to choose foods that are truly satisfying, and mindful eating. I really can't say enough about mindful eating. And what mindful eating is basically it's paying attention to the food. I know we mentioned this earlier, but instead of standing in the kitchen kind of eating something out of a bag, put it on a plate. You sit at the table, take away the television, take away the computer, sit down and actually chew and taste and enjoy your food and get the pleasure from the taste and all the different things going around about that food itself. And that, I think it's super, super important to help prevent some overeating.
Okay, and thank you guys. We've run out of time, but I want to thank you guys so much for coming on our show. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience who watched the program have learned a lot as well. And that's it today for our edition of Mental Health Matters. If you need a copy of the show, or if you just want to call and just have questions about the show, you can call 916-366-4600. Thank you.
When I think of where I've been, the good times and the bad, on a scale of 1 to 10, either way I'm glad, 'cause I'm not alone. As I'm reaching for the phone, your voice is there, you really care, you're my comfort zone. Sometimes when I'm lost, crushed beneath the pain, though I can't afford the cost, I just smile and play the game. But there's a healing place where I cannot pretend. Your smiling face, your heart's embrace heals me again. So even when the storm is strong and I'm deaf to my own cry, I faintly hear a distant song and I simply can't deny that I'm not alone. 10,000 times I've known my best bet is that first step for hope. Trying to stand tall, I'm haunted by the past. With my back against that wall, one thing is clear at last. The kind of love you show to me flows from an endless stream, with shores so wide it won't subside. My mind had never dreamed how I'm not alone. Even when I'm on my own, your gentle touch is much too much to let me roll. So even when the storm is strong and I'm deaf to my own cry, I faintly hear a distant song and I simply can't deny how I'm not alone. 10,000 times I've known my best bet is that first step.